You have to believe in the vision that you have. It's not anybody else's vision. It's your vision. And even if everybody around you doesn't believe in it, if you've done the due diligence and you've seen that it's an actual problem that can be solved in the marketplace and you have an answer for it, then you owe it to yourself to go after it.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we have Kenny Donnell on the show, who is going to be talking about a lot of amazing things. We're going to be talking about his book, From Employee to Boss, and we're going to go through his entrepreneurial journey, the ups, downs, and all the side roads that no one expected to happen. Welcome out to the show, Kenny.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it.
You know, this show is about the entrepreneurial journey, and your book, being From Employee to Boss, is an interesting title because it kind of shows that maybe you didn't take the traditional route towards being a business owner. So when was that moment in your life that you realized, I'm an entrepreneur?
You know, I didn't take any traditional route at all, to be honest with you. The moment I realized I was an entrepreneur was when I was pretty much forced into entrepreneurship. And it was early on. I had got into a lot of trouble when I was about 16, 17. I ended up with a 7-year prison sentence. I ended up with a 10-year. I did 7 of it. And when I got out of prison, nobody would give me a job. You know, that looking at that resume and you put, you know, have you ever been convicted? And it was like, yes. And then they say when. I was like, just got out. They were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So my first entrepreneurial journey happened by accident. I was coming home I got into college when I got out, and coming home from college, I got lost and ended up in this building complex. And there was a guy there talking to the UPS driver, and I would just stop and ask him directions. And I asked him what he did. He gave me directions. I asked him what he did because he had all these ironing boards and stuff in the warehouse. And he turned out to have the housekeeping contracts for major hotels in Dallas and Fort Worth. And UPS was coming to pick up the things that needed to be delivered. And then I asked him, I said, well, you know, how much do they charge you for that? And he told me, and I said, I'll do it for half. And so on the spot, he's like, you do it for half? And I said, yeah. And I began to explain, I'm a college student, and, you know, I'm reliable, and here's my schedule, and I can do these things. And he said, all right, I'll give you a shot for a week. And that was my first official entrepreneurial journey down that path. And it's been several iterations in and out of corporate, multiple businesses. But yeah, I had to get it almost out of necessity because I didn't have any other options. I needed to work.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I usually ask, like, what's one moment that was an extreme challenge and extreme setback, and how'd you overcome it? And we're going to address that, but I think your journey having to build from a place of coming out of prison, right? That adds such a unique challenge to things. I don't want the whole show to be about that, but let's just draw one more story from there, and then we'll kind of move forward in your lifeline, in your timeline. You know, how was that as you came from that experience, finding unique ways to solve problems when, you know, maybe people weren't willing to give you the job or give you the opportunity? With that, the story you just shared, were you transparent with that person, or did you just like say, hey, I'm just going to only talk about college, right? Talk to me about a little bit of that challenge.
Yeah, with him, there was no need to be transparent. Like it was you have a need. I can solve a problem. I have a vehicle to do it. Give me a shot to do it. And there was no official application. He didn't ask any backup questions outside of maybe if I could afford gas, right? So there was no need for transparency relative to my history. All the places that I applied to when I got out, however, all the corporate positions or companies, it was a requirement, and they wanted to know. And so it was either lie, which only meant that they was going to find out eventually when I ran the background, or be upfront and honest. And the interesting thing about it is, up until that point, either in the interview or the application, I was an ideal candidate. But when it got to that point, it was, no, we're not willing to take that risk. So the challenge was expected. right? I understood coming out full well that it was going to be an issue. I didn't know how much it was going to be an issue. I didn't know McDonald's wouldn't hire me. I didn't know Domino's wasn't going to hire me. Like, I didn't know I couldn't get some basic entry level positions. So I knew it was going to be a challenge. I didn't know how much, but I didn't have any other options because the alternative would have been to turn back and go backwards.
Right.
And that was not going to happen. And that's the one thing that I believe along this entrepreneurial journey, if I take positives from that 7-year experience, it was if I can recover from that, if I can work as hard as I worked for the state of Texas and give them everything that they required, then there's no way that I wasn't going to give the same effort to myself. And realizing that no matter what happens with any company, and every company I've been in has had issues and challenges, I can always reflect back and look back on I've been in worse situations. I've overcome more difficult challenges. And if I can look and see if anybody has ever had success in an arena, then why not me?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the word of advice you have to somebody who may be in a similar situation or just really facing, a challenging past, right? And trying to write their future.
Yeah, well, first you have to give yourself enough grace to understand that you don't have to be what you did. And there will be people who aren't in your corner. So you have to be realistic about that part. There are going to be some people who do not believe in you. And quite frankly, they probably shouldn't because you haven't earned the belief. So the first thing that I tell everybody to do is do some self-reflection, acknowledge whatever the situation was, whatever the mistake was. But the same thing that's going to keep you staying on this entrepreneurial journey is going to be what you say about yourself. And if you can speak life into yourself, then that's going to move you each and every day. And all you can do is take it day by day. But if you keep moving forward, a month will pass, months will pass, years will pass. And it came a point where my record didn't even matter, especially when I started getting some years behind me and getting the corporate America and doing different things. It wasn't an issue, but you cannot fast track it.
So yeah, I really like that you just embrace the fact that the world's not just gonna all of a sudden embrace it, right? You got to earn those stripes and work your way back up. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing right now. What's your big initiative and what's going on?
Yeah. So out of the multiple companies I've started, I've had a limo company, I've had a federal contracts construction company, I've had a home building company, and they've all, with the exception of the limo company, that was horrible, epic fail. They all had levels of success with them and great learnings. But along the journey, I realized that my path, apart from prison, is typical for a lot of people paths, meaning we've done a lot of different things, right? Like everything I've done has been some level of sales, but it's been a lot of different industries. And then you get to a point in your life, and for that entrepreneur or that wannabe entrepreneur is trying to figure out, well, what business can I launch? I get that a lot. And so what I'm doing now is I've created, like I have nothing else to do, I've created another company called Exposure Experts that works with those individuals who are trying to figure out, I've done all these things in my career and I don't know what I should launch that will actually make me money. Right. And then how do I launch that? So that's where that employee, the boss came from. It's more mindset than it is position. And it will help people start to get in the right mindset and then harness those talents that you already have to identify a problem you can solve and then how to package that to make money off of it.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's interesting. I've noticed there's two types of people that are starting businesses. One, people who have a ton of ideas and they don't know which one to do. Yeah. Or people who struggle to come up with one idea. And it's like there's almost nothing in between. You're either an idea person or you're not. And so do you help both sides? Like, hey, here's all your ideas. Let's find the best one for you. And I can't come up with something. Do you help them find that thing?
Yes. Yes, I help both sides of that equation, and what I normally tell them is, there's some people who are born gifted. Right? We know LeBron was born gifted, right? We know Jordan was born gifted, even though he had a little hiccup in high school. He figured it out. He figured out his gift was basketball. Beyonce and singers and entertainers, people are born gifted, and they know exactly what they're born to do. The majority of us, we're figuring it out. Right. And so I help people kind of cut through the mutter of it all, because a lot of times we can't see that your skill set is valuable to somebody. You just think I'm putting these widgets together, or I'm doing this accounting stuff, or whatever you're doing. You just see what you do. I help them see a bigger picture in solving problems that companies have that they will pay you to help them solve.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think people need help at any of those stages, like you said, and some people have that clear vision of who they are and what they're doing. We're going to zoom backwards. I like to do this. I jump backwards and forwards, but
Yeah.
as you kind of move from that first little entrepreneurial side hustle or only hustle when you're in college to starting a few businesses, what was the first time you had, what was the first big win where you realized, I think I can do this. I think I can hustle out on my own? Because you've done the employee to boss jump a couple of times.
Oh, I have. My first, when I was graduating from college, I actually got my first official job, if you will, and in ministry at TD Jakes Ministries, and I was on the sales team, and I worked my way up over a 5-year period into running his conferences. So those 60,000, 80,000, 100,000 event conferences, I was over those conferences. And along that journey in connecting with him is where that entrepreneur thing was restoked, because he told me one day, he said, you really have a gift. You should do your own thing. Well, for me, the thing that I had focused on was real estate. I wanted to do fix and flipping. Right. And so my first big win was the very first flip that I did. I bought a small, shut down, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 500 square foot house in the worst section of Southern Dallas. And I bought that thing for about $20,000. And I had a friend who was a contractor, and it cost all in about $60,000 to get it up to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I sold it for $100,000. And that was almost like the golfer who hits that amazing putt or that amazing golf hit, and they're hooked. And I was hooked at that point to, I can do this. Like, I don't know anything about construction. I don't know anything about building, but I do know how to hire people, and I do know how to connect and network with people. And I had some sales experience. So I got hooked from that one big win. And that's usually what it takes for somebody. Somebody gets a big win, or they get a sale, and they're like, ooh, I want to do this. Little did I know, there was so much I had no clue about.
Yeah. And I think sometimes early on in business, the ignorance is actually what gives us that the delusion to think that it's all going to work out. And then we go through this dip where we have, now we have skills, but we also are aware of all the challenges. And I think sometimes we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. So I know you scooted over the limo company. Tell me what happened there. Like, what was the lesson you took away from the failed limo business?
That was me and two friends. We all worked at the church at the time, but we were on the transportation committee, and we got an idea that, we wanted to start a business. So I was telling them about the little side hustle business I was doing in college. They're like, let's do it. So we knew a guy who owned a limo company, and he agreed that if he had a limo down and we could find an event, he would rent us out his limo. So we found an event. We found one event, our claim to fame event, and it was a birthday party for a well-known sportscaster in the DFW area. And we picked up one client, and that client was Emmitt Smith. He had no clue who we were, right? We were three guys, can you imagine, in this front of this limo driving one guy around. That's just how ridiculous it was. And when it was all said and done, we didn't make any money because the rental of the limo, the gas, the suits we had the hat on. We didn't make any money. And I learned really quickly, you can have a great idea, but if you don't have a plan, if you don't understand budgeting, if you don't understand managing money, if you don't understand how to get clients, then it's just a great idea.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And so that was one thing I took from that. My biggest eye opener though was when I started doing the fix and flip. I got tired of that and I transitioned into building houses. And I started building houses and I was doing pretty good. And one morning I bought this beautiful Ford truck. It was a King Ranch. It was blue. It had the seats in it that looks like the saddle seats. Oh, that thing was beautiful. I loved it. And I walked out one morning and it was gone. It was gone. I called the police, and now me and ex-con calling the police. That was ironic. But I called the police and I'm talking to the dispatcher. And before she gets off the phone, she says, "Sure, before I send this out, are you sure you're not behind on your payments?" And I said, "Oh, I'll call you back." That truck wasn't stolen. That truck was repossessed, right? And that taught me that revenue is different from profit. You can be making money, but doesn't mean that you're profitable. And if you don't know how to manage money, and especially managing jobs when you're in the construction field or whatever industry you may be in, then it can look like things are going well. You have to understand those numbers and finances. And I didn't know how to do that. And that's every time I went into corporate America, it was to learn a skill. It was to learn a skill to help me in my entrepreneurial journey and then get back out and put it to application.
Yeah. Two great stories, by the way, Kenny. I really love both of those. I think the first one really makes me smile because, you know, the limo business might have been a great idea, but you had to learn a little something about org charts. Probably don't need 3 drivers per limo, and 3 suits and 3 outfits, and like pretty hard to make money when you're tripling up labor.
Yes, it is.
But you know, that's a pretty mild failure compared to some that I've heard. I mean, you didn't go out and buy 4 or 5 cars before you even figured out if you knew how to acquire a customer, right? And which I've seen people do. And so good lessons. Really appreciate both of those. What, as you see people getting started now, whether they're young and just getting started or finally taking that leap from employee to boss, what's the message that you hope they hear before they take that first step?
The thing that I have seen the majority of people struggle with is on that operational side of business. I think that there are some incredible mechanics, but I've seen more mechanics fail than anything. And it's not because they can't do the job. It's because they can't manage their books. They can't understand their operations. So what I would hope people would do is don't just think about the skill set that you need to pull off whatever it is you're trying to do. Think about what a boss of mine used to say: take a hot air balloon ride, get into a position and think about the operational side of your business. Think about your accounting, think about your marketing, think about your advertising, think about the cost that it's going to take to run this business. And if at all possible, try to save up 12 months of those expenses where you don't have to be sales thirsty. You don't have to have stress breath, right? Where you're not trying to push a sale through or compromise things, because if you don't make this sale, you're either out of business or back in corporate, or worse, your house is going to be taken or anything else. Save that money if you can. 12 months is ideal for me, because I think the sales cycles for most things are going to run 3 to 6 months. Usually it's going to take you three to 6 months just to ramp up and trying to figure out what you're doing and what you don't know. Did I lose my camera?
No, I still see you.
Okay. So 12 months is what I believe someone should focus in on. That's going to help them ramp up so they're not stressed out about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can either have cash reserves, skill reserves, have been stocked by energy reserves, right? Where you've got you just have a ton of time and freedom on your hand. And so if you got to have some of those. If you don't have any reserves, probably not the time to go into starting a business on your own. You're going to be broke, tired, and still have no skills. So
Yeah, you're going to be very frustrated.
Yeah. What made you decide to write a book?
So quite honestly, I wrote the book because one, everybody was telling me, they were like, Kenny, man, if you're going to be an authority on something, you need to write a book. Like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, okay, let me figure out what book I want to write, because I just didn't want to write a book to say, hey, I have a book. But the second reason I wrote the book is, I've been in a unique position as a owner, but I've also been pretty blessed in corporate. So as people think about employee to boss, they think about the entrepreneurial journey, but the book is also for people who are in corporate America. Employee to boss is a mindset more than a position. And working through, if you're working for someone, understanding how to solve problems, because it's the same thing when you're working for yourself. People pay for problems solved. That's what they pay for. When we buy anything we buy, the reason we're buying it is because it's solving some level of a problem, at least something we consider to be a problem. So people pay for problem solved, and employees don't always have the mindset of the boss. But if you can get a mindset of a boss who our whole job is to solve problems, figure out what's wrong, come up with the solution, and chart the path forward. I wrote that book for anybody, whether you're in corporate or you're outside of corporate, who needs to have a mindset shift to see things differently in order to take control of their life. Because not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's going to make it as an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs need people to work for them. But we all need people who bring us solutions, not just problems.
Yeah, I've always loved the concept of an intrapreneur, where, you've got to be... entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Being just like in a company, not every role is the right fit for you, right? If you're bad at numbers, don't be an accountant. If you hate sales, don't go into sales, right? We should lean into our strengths. I'm a big believer of leaning into strengths more than just focusing on always fix weaknesses. So I love that spirit and that ideology. You've got your book, you got some other great stuff out there. Where do people go to get to know more about you?
Yep. So to find more about me, you can go out to my website, kennydonnell.com. And you can follow me on any social media. Oh my gosh. Let's try this again. I turned my notifications off, I swear. To find me, you can go to kennydonnell.com, or you can follow me on social media, Kenny Donnell DFW, on all my social media channels. That's how you can connect with me. You can engage with me. I have some workshops coming up. I'm calling them masterclasses. My first one is going to be in August, where I'm going to do a 2-day masterclass and take people actually through the steps of the clarity triangle that I created, that at the end of that masterclass, they're going to have a viable idea that they can go out and launch and test and launch to the marketplace to start a business.
Awesome. And then I'm a big believer that life is not just about business, that creating a business is not just about that. That's not supposed to be the end all be all. What's one item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Whew. So I already checked one off. And that was my 16-year-old. She just turned 16 a week and a half ago. And for 2 years, she's been talking about she wanted a Jeep. She wanted a Jeep. She wanted a Jeep. And this girl was so detailed. We went to a Jeep dealership about a month after she told me she wanted a Jeep. And I said, write down every question you have about Jeeps. She had 25 questions that she asked the salesperson. And she knew stuff about Jeeps. I learned stuff about Jeeps. So when her 16th came, she got a Jeep. So that was one thing that I wanted to make sure that I did from a father standpoint. The next thing that I have on my bucket list to do, and I'm really close to achieving it this year, is speaking in Dubai. So I have an opportunity that's sitting on my desk that I'm working on. There's a lot of things going on right now, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Yeah. But There is an opportunity sitting on my desk that I'm working on that's going to give me a chance to speak in Dubai.
That's great. Yeah, there's things we can control and the things we can't, right? So we've got to focus on the ones we can. The world is an interesting stage right now, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. So I hope that happens for you. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories with us. If there's any one last piece of inspiration or motivation for our listeners, what would that be?
Yeah, it'll be two things. One, you have to believe in the vision that you have. It's not anybody else's vision. It's your vision. And even if everybody around you doesn't believe in it, if you've done the due diligence and you've seen that it's an actual problem that can be solved in the marketplace and you have an answer for it, then you owe it to yourself to go after it and learn along the journey and recognize that it's not going to be a straight path. Very few people get a straight path to success. It's going to be 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and adjustments all along the way, but keep moving forward and believe in you. The second thing I want to give everybody is a workbook that I created, kennydonnell.com/clarity. If you go to kennydonnell.com/clarity, you'll be able to download a free workbook. It will take you through some parts of the clarity triangle that will actually get you to start thinking about the skill sets you do have based upon the experiences that you've been through. So, but I'll always believe in you and bet on yourself. It's a good bet.
I love that. Kenny, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. To all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, watching, or tuning in, it is your turn to go out and do something.